Sorry, yeah. Tell us about the power cord. Tell us about the
Okay.
power supply.
All right. So, um, most people, I don't know most people, but when you order the miners, they don't normally come with power cords. Some people I hear, they get upset. Oh, you didn't give me a power cord. But you can just use a standard power cord that you would use for your computer. And one of the reasons being that each country is going to have a different type of plug, and people are ordering these from all over the world, in every country. So it would just be complicated to send out different cords. And when you get the cord, most cords are going to be 18 gauge wire, but you can get a heavier duty wire. This one is 14 gauge wire. That's going to give you more protection from overheating of the wire, because it draws a lot of power and the wire can get hot. And it's going to make a lot of noise. And this unit, it's got a small fan, so that makes more noise than a larger fan unit. And it's going to sound like a little vacuum cleaner. And that's with it not connected to anything. That's just the fan running. So if I connect it to the miner control board, that's going to power the two fans on the miner.
And so, also, are you planning on using this ladder as your setup?
No. This is just a makeshift demonstration area.
Just want to be clear about that.
Okay.
And so, like, what about the surge protector then?
Yeah, so you definitely want to have this connected into a surge protection. You can consider using battery backup, but you're going to need a pretty big unit that's going to be rated at the wattage of the miner.
What's the wattage for what's this particular miner? Is the
Yeah, so this miner is the A4 Plus from INNOSILICON, and they rate it at 750 watts.
and a battery pack for 750 watts.
It's going to run you around $200. And the other thing to consider is you can only run two miners safely on one 20 amp breaker. So you're going to need to have different circuits for each two miners.
And one other thing that you mentioned about it doesn't come with the power cord, and that's why you were saying that the 14 gauge is if you're going to have to buy one, just get a heavier duty one.
Yeah, I was able to get these online fairly inexpensive for a few dollars. And I got them on 6 foot and 3 foot lengths.
And what about the materials I see sitting there on the shelf, the no slip material?
Yeah, so this is the same type of material you put under a carpet. When the fans are running at full speed, they can vibrate a little, and this cuts down on vibration and also keep the miners from sliding, shimmying around. So it's an extra safety precaution. Otherwise, also keep in mind you don't want the material getting sucked into the fan, and you don't want to put anything in here like a pen, because if it catches it, it's going to probably damage the fan.
Have you ever caught your finger in there?
Yes, I have. You can catch your finger on there too.
So safety first.
For sure, yeah.
And then, so tell me again about this miner. What's it called again?
It's the A4 Plus.
INNOSILICON.
INNOSILICON is the manufacturer.
Silicon, and that's similar to the Bitmain L3 script miner. Is that right?
Yeah, they're very similar, but this one has somewhat more hashing power and it uses less wattage, so it's more efficient overall.
And so that's like some of the main reasons to maybe consider going with this setup instead of the Bitmain, or
Well, also with the script mining, the miners generally use less power compared to, say, the Bitcoin miners. They might use twice the amount of wattage. So the fans are generally even noisier.
and what's this one rated for megahash?
The company rates it at 620.
And for comparison, the L3 is,
It's rated at 504.
and then what were you saying about that? A lot of them are the same power, but maybe have higher hash rates.
So this A4 Plus is the upgraded version of the A4 Non-Plus. And this one has over twice the hashing power, even though the power usage, wattage-wise, is about the same. So the efficiency is definitely improved.
And then who do you think has the better configuration software, which we haven't talked about IP config. I think we're going to end up doing a whole nother video on that. But as far as just from what you know about the...
Yeah, so with the configuring the miner, you do it through a web interface. And from what I see on the interface is not that great. It's a little bit slow and laggy to load the screens, and it doesn't provide you with a lot of information. For instance, the fan, it just tells you the percentage the fans are running at, speed-wise. It doesn't give you the exact RPMs, and I think it rounds it off to the nearest 10%. So it might say 50%, it might say 60%, but it could actually be 55%. And the other thing is it averages the speeds of both fans together, so one fan can be burned out and you wouldn't even know it by the interface. Whereas on the Bitmain interface, it breaks it down by RPM and it gives you the individual speed of each fan.
What about as far as like surge protectors? Like how many miners do you think you can get on a certain surge protector, and like does it matter with the wattage and different things like that?
Just about every surge protector out there has a maximum power rating, which is only going to allow you to run 2 miners on it. So not only do you can only run 2 miners per surge protector, but only 2 per circuit breaker, 20 amp circuit breaker.
So then what, you have to have separate setups if you want to have more than one miner? Or more than 2 miners?
If you're going to run more than 2, yeah, you're definitely going to need more power. You're going to need a separate breaker and a separate surge protector.
One thing that I found interesting was the minimum orders from this particular company that they've just, it used to be, what was the minimum order?
When they first made this available, you had to pre-order it. So I pre-ordered it back in September, and at the time there was a minimum order of 3 units, and now they've drastically increased it, so it basically puts it out of reach for your average
You can't go pick up 3 of them or 5 of them anymore.
No, now I think it's 50 units.
Wow. And how, like roughly how much?
They're selling them at $3,200 each.
And does that number continue to go up as the supply and demand situation?
They've maintained that price since the official release, so they haven't adjusted it. But at some point they will lower it. For instance, that Dash miner that was running at 10,000, they've since lowered the price because the difficulty's gone up. And now you can buy, I think you can buy like 4 of the Dash miners now for the same price. Or around the same price.
What about if you wanted to order a Bitmain?
Their miners currently are running about half the cost. So you could essentially buy 8 of the L3s for the same cost. That includes the power supplies and the shipping and everything.
As 1 or 3?
You could buy 8 for the same price as 4.
Okay.
Well, I ordered 4 of them. So, I mean, that includes shipping and power supplies and everything. You'd have almost twice the hashing power for about the same cost.
With the Bitmain.
Yeah.
And the only reason you didn't order
It
those...
wasn't available at the time.
So why don't you just get...
Well, I'm already stuck with these. I gotta get my money back on these.
Why don't you get 8 new ones and make...
Well, the problem is then you gotta do wiring for 8, which might be problematic for depending on your setup.
Oh, with the power consumption.
Then you're gonna need 4 breakers.
Breakers. Gotcha.
I'm gonna be struggling getting 4 running in the same room.
Just with the heat and everything.
Yeah, so if you have 8, that's even gonna be more problematic. But if you have a nice setup with plenty of cooling and plenty of power, then it's not a problem. Go with the 8.
You'll make your money back?
Make your money back faster.
I know you're not a financial advisor.
No, definitely not. I've made some really bad financial decisions.
Do your own research, disclaimer. But potentially you would be making your money back, like in... I know you said there's like calculators that you can figure it out.
Yeah, the calculators tend to be very inaccurate in the sense they don't take in consideration the difficulty increasing. They only give you the estimate at that moment in time. So
right, and it doesn't stay the same.
It's going to constantly be going up, but it also doesn't take into consideration the value of the coins you're mining. Those might go up too, to offset the difficulty going up.
So you want to try to pick the ones that are going to go up in value. They're going to go up in difficulty as well, but
yeah, because you're mining something that is also appreciating in value. If you were just mining US dollars, it'd be a different scenario.
So were there any other things that you were talking about on the hash board or any of the other technical components up on top there?
That the hash boards are not currently connected.
Oh, that's right. So some people may notice that it looks a little different, and that's just because there's no hash boards currently connected.
Right.
And this isn't the one that... This one didn't fall off the shelf, right?
No,
This one
no.
still works?
No, this one did fall off the
Oh,
shelf.
this is the one that fell off the shelf?
Well, they
All
more
okay.
than one of them did.
Okay, but this is the one that suffered?
Basically, I took the working hash boards out of here. There was 2 miners that had problematic hash boards. I combined them into a single miner and sent back 4 hash boards. But, I mean, this part we probably want to cut out because...
Okay, we'll cut it out for sure.
I don't want the company to know that. I'm going to hope they're sending back...
That's okay, just stop talking. Just stop talking. Anyway, But they will fall off the shelf is the moral of the story.
If you don't have adequate ventilation and the room gets hot, the fans will run faster. They're normally running about 60% speed most of the time. But if it gets too hot, they'll run at 100% speed, and at that speed, they'll shake more, and they can shake right off of a shelf. So you definitely want to make sure they're secure, and this non-slip mat adds some extra security.
But even still, that's not a guarantee.
I wouldn't rely on that solely, especially if they're not being closely monitored. In case you have some problem where the heat goes up and you don't realize it. Hopefully the boards aren't going to get damaged. The boards can potentially get damaged if your environment gets too hot and something happens to the fan.
Why don't people just put them in the freezer? You know what I mean?
That's not ideal because it's not so efficient, and then you got to worry about condensation. You don't want too cold is not good either. You have to worry about condensation.
I thought computers, the colder the better.
No, Google has like a recommended temperature for a server room, environment. I think it's around 68 degrees. If you can keep your room at 68 degrees, that'd be great. But I think Google actually, in their data centers, they started increasing the temperature to save power because they figured the equipment will still work even slightly hotter environment. But yeah, you want to keep it. You don't want to. If you go down to like freezing temperatures, that's going to cause other types of problems.
Gotcha.
But it does give you the ability to overclock the boards and run them at higher speeds.
How do you overclock them?
It's an unsupported feature that the company offers. Bitmain also has the same feature, but you can essentially increase the voltage to the hash boards, and it'll increase the megahash.
So you wait until your warranty's done?
Probably, yeah. I want to wait till the warranty.
And then, if you're going to try it, but you can get more out of it, but you risk it all melting, or what?
Well, if you have a handle on your temperature issues and you can keep your environment cold, then it's probably safe to do. But if you're already running hot, you don't want to do it because it's just going to make them run hotter. But you could essentially make an L3 run at the speed of an A4 Plus just by overclocking it.
Oh, but then you would be out of warranty?
And you'd be using more power to keep your environment colder. And it also increases the wattage the miner is using. So now that 800 watts it's using is now it might be 850 or even more. And if you overclock it too much, the miner will start running unstable, and it could potentially be doing bad data, and then you're not going to get credit for your hash rate. It'll be returning back errors. So you want to find a sweet spot.
Have you been able to find any?
I haven't done any overclocking on these.
Oh, they're all...
Keep them at the default settings.
Oh, and then that way you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you have to go... I was having enough trouble configuring them. I don't want to mess with doing anything that's going to make them fail more frequently. Because they already occasionally will reboot on their own if they start accumulating a lot of errors, just to reset the settings, or if it starts running too hot.
What's the configuring that you're talking about? That how they're normally configured to come out of the box, set a certain way, which worked for one environment, but then you had to move.
So right out of the box, they're configured to a default IP address, which is static. It's 192.168.168.1. 1.1.254. Each miner has the same IP, so you have to individually configure them. You can't have two turned on at the same time or you'll have an IP conflict. So you turn one on, change the IP to something else that you'll remember. I have mine assigned to the last number I numbered the miner, and then you can reconfigure the next miner.
What, you just put a little sticker and a marker on there?
Yeah, I put a sticker here, and then I put a sticker on the side so I can write the full IP address. So I just assign it to an IP that's not in conflict in my environment already, and that I'll remember. Because you need to go, you have to use that same IP address to configure the miner in the web interface.
Yeah, so how'd you configure that number in the first place? Through the web interface?
Yeah, you punch in that.
Which we're going to have another video inside the computer.
So then the other thing is, once you log into the interface, if the miner's getting internet connectivity, you'll find it's already started mining, and it's actually mining to the company's pool.
Say that again.
So the company defaults every miner to their own pool.
So when you hook this thing up, it takes off, it roars, it goes, and it's mining, and you think everything's great.
Possibly. If in my environment, the IP address was at the same subnet, so it already had internet connectivity without doing any configuring, and it was already mining away for the company.
And you wouldn't have known that
until you get into the configuration menu. But another issue to keep in mind is sometimes the miner might crash and it resets and it restores the default settings. So even though you change the mining pool, it'll revert back to the company's pool.
And you can't undo the default settings. You can't change the defaults.
Well, you can, but you have to go into the console.
Okay.
But if you didn't realize it, you wouldn't know it was mining the wrong pool.
Right, so we'll have to do an instructional tutorial on how to change those defaults so that when the power goes out, it's not automatically going back to
in case
the company.
It resets for, from my understanding, those were earlier versions of the firmware. So I've since updated the firmware. So
yeah, and we're going to show how to update the firmware at some point as well, right?
I've updated the firmware twice since I've gotten the miners. So they've been working out a lot of the bugs with their earlier versions. I think that was also contributed to the delay in shipping out the miners, because they found that some of the miners were overheating, and those were because of early versions of the firmware.
And so some of those things have been worked out at this point, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it might make the miner run more stable. Maybe the hash rate is slightly less, but if it's more stable, it works out in the long run. And also the newer firmwares allow the control board to control more hash boards. So you could potentially have 8 hash boards connected to the same control board, where it normally only has 4.
And more is better, right?
Well, in this sense, yes.
Okay, well, any other tips or tricks you think, somebody who's just buying one of these and unpackaging it like this here, and anything people would want to keep in mind as they're getting started?
I mean, obviously, you're going to want to deal with the noise issues and the power issues.
The noise, the power, and the heat is the things that keep coming up.
Yeah, it generates a lot of heat, so your room might start feeling like a sauna. So you're going to need to vent that hot air out somewhere.
Unless you're lucky enough to live in a cold,
if you
live in the North Pole.
If you live in Iceland, you're in the perfect scenario. You can save on your heating cost.
So
Just vent that air into your living space.
Oh, I love it. Can you turn it on again so we can hear just how loud it is? So I'm talking at the same volume, and I'm sure you can barely even hear me.
Yeah. And you probably couldn't hear me given before. You can hear me now.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. And then just real quick too, about the switch on the lower shelf. I don't think they can see the switch on the lower shelf there.
Okay, so it connects into a network switch, which is your. I mean, you don't have a Wi-Fi option on this, so you're gonna have to.
It has to be hooked up through Ethernet cord.
Ethernet's your only option, and your home router probably is not gonna have. I don't know. You're either gonna have to connect it to your router or hook your router to a switch.
Okay.
And then, yeah, you're going to need to be on the same subnet.
The same subnet? Okay, so I know we're going to do another video, but just real quick, like, what does it mean? So, like, you plug it in, you can't find it, the computer can't find it, or whatever. It's not on the right subnet.
So, it might be on its own network, which has its own set of numbers, and if you're on different subnets, devices can't see each other. So you want to be able to see your device on your network. And your default subnet may be different than the miner's default. So then that's going to be more involved in changing. You probably don't want to change your home network. It's going to be...
it's going to be easier to change it on the miner.
Yeah, don't change your home network to match the miner. Do it the other way around.
What's the little warranty sticker there on the corner?
So they tape a little sticker on the screw head, and it says warranty void if removed. And essentially, they don't want you to monkey with the insides of the miner and swap out components, and tinker with it.
Yeah, because you need to have the right fan size spinning at the right fan speed.
Right. These fans are specially designed for the miner, and an off-the-shelf one may not give you the amount of airflow you need to keep the hash boards cool.
And what were you saying too, that like it's only using half of the board on top there?
Oh yeah, so the control board has more connectors where you can connect to more hash boards. And there's an upgraded model of this A4 called the A6, which is twice the size. It's got twice the hash boards, twice the fans. But it's essentially two of these in one.
Same price?
No, it's about twice the price, so it's not really any advantage other than...
But you think if you were to purchase another one that it would probably be either the L3 so that you could keep doing Litecoin and Dash, is that what you said?
Well, Dash is a different